We're back talking horse racing, the greatest gambling game in the world. I'm Nick Sievers.
And Emily.
We are going to be looking at the Oaklawn Handicap, and we're going to make Emily handicap live. She hasn't seen the card, so she claims, and based on the fact that I pulled it up, and she said, "No, don't show me. I really want to do it without seeing it." So I'm going to believe her. So we're gonna look at the Oaklawn Handicap.
Okay. I've handicapped. There's 12 races on the Saturday card, and I, as people know, like do the videos for TwinSpires and expert picks on TwinSpires. So I've handicapped 11 of the 12, but I didn't look at this one because I wanted to talk to you and be like, maybe it'd be fun to handicap it live. And so I haven't looked at it at all. I pulled it up, and even with it on the screen, I haven't really gone through. So I thought it'd be kind of fun if people that have been following Oaklan and obviously are going to be looking at this race. And this is like a little bit different than Oaklan because these aren't really like horses that have been based at Oaklan, but at least like going through the process. And then what I come up with here, I'll re-record a video later that will be on TwinSpires this weekend. So a little bit different, a little bit fun. I hope that it works out. But you've looked at this race. You've already handicapped it.
Yep.
So you have an opinion going in, and I'm going in completely blind. So what we have on the screen right now is from Optics EQ. I am a partner at Optics EQ, so full transparency there. So we can, obviously use their stuff. I have my own permission to do that. So what I start with the plot, and the plot is a visual representation for the race shape. Now, a couple things that I just kind of look at first. I don't try to get in and be like, okay, who's going to make the lead? Who's going to do that? I kind of just take like big picture stuff first. So it's a red plot fit, which kind of shows that there's a couple different scenarios of like how the race can be run, right? It's not as necessarily black and white, not that horse races ever are, but it's also showing that the contention is a snowflake. So there's not a lot of horses that want to be on or near the lead. And that matches up with the Optics RPM, the run style match. We don't see any horses that are that confirmed EP type runner. So kind of interesting right off the bat. And then there is an honest speed rate. I wouldn't necessarily say it's fast, but 33. And that kind of matches up with the visuals. So looking at first call in Optics plot is from left to right. So even though we don't have any front running horses based on how these horses have run in the past, again, this is based on the raw data, breaking out of the gate, it could be any combination of 1, 3, 4, 6 should be forward, right? Based on what they've run in the past, with the 5 stalking and the 2 off the pace. When we look at kind of second call, there's not a lot of shift in there, sort of reading top to bottom, where 1, 3, 5 kind of move towards the front, 4 starts to lose some ground, the 6 is still in that tracking type trip, and 2 is still a little bit off the pace, but actually starting to move up a little bit to that second call. Now, heading into the stretch, we sort of followed that diagonal from top left-hand corner sort of downward. And this is where the circles and squares come into play. And again, it's all relational to a relationship to each other. Squares have stronger finishing ability than circles, right? So if it comes into the stretch where the 1 and the 5 are in a stretch duel, the 5 should be able to outkick. In terms of standard versus surface distance, standard gives us current form, right? The most recent races for that horse. And we have some horses I can just kind of see that are in red coming off layoffs, but current form being their most recent. And then surface distance, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's for races at that distance, 2 turns. And We broaden it out a little bit when it's like 9 furlongs because sometimes it's not necessarily a big sample, but there's really not much change in as far as like standard surface distance. So when I'm looking at this kind of race shape overall, the first thing that I want to do is just sort of look again broad, like, is there any pace advantage, disadvantage? And I think the weirdest part of it is the fact that there's not a front running type horse in this field. So we're going to try to have to figure out, because somebody's going to have to get out of their running style a little bit. And there might be some races once we dig into the grid where a horse has been on the lead. Maybe that's a tactical advantage. But from that standpoint, I'd say horse is probably Wide Barrio interesting. I'm just kind of matching now. I'm just matching like name to shape, right? Could be a little bit vulnerable, maybe based on that position and where others in the field. Obviously, the 4 Duke of Duval seems very much like a legitimate long shot in here, maybe a hopeless long shot in here. And while the 2 sitting off the pace and maybe should be able to track, doesn't necessarily have a strong late kick. Now there might be some buried form in there that we can discover as they come back off the layoff. Now, in terms of assessing the favorite, Sovereignty being your morning lane favorite, the 3 horse in here, there shouldn't be any excuse in terms of trip, I would say. I don't think they have necessarily a strong pace advantage, no disadvantage. Their running style fits today's race shape. And similar for Journalism as well, who's sitting in probably has a better running style. Well, I don't know. It's about a coin flip. Before we kind of dig into everything else, did you have anything you want to add on kind of pace and race shape?
Not a coin flip. Journalism has a distinct advantage, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay.
To give away my idea.
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of when you have the par line, which is the blue line there towards the top. When they're above it, it always makes me feel a little bit better because, like, why is that line there? It's to show who's the best. And Journalism has
People
crossed the line a little bit.
don't take that as the case. But
It's very much not. But
there is obviously they have some ability in terms of that second call in class and things like that. But
we've also seen Journalism get beat by Sovereignty every time they faced each other. But Journalism was doing okay. So I don't like the note that you have there. Would you move over to Journalism? There's a note that says shorter. We are getting shorter at least. So we got that going for us.
We are definitely getting shorter. 10 furlongs, is a classic distance, and there is a difference, right? We've been talking about Kentucky Derby. That extra furlong is a difference maker, and for a horse that's shorter, I would say that's a positive note in this case. Especially going back to the Haskell at 9 furlongs is a B+.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm.
Yep. And other than that, I mean, I think for pace and distance or pace and shape, I think that all kind of looks right. The one key that I've been focusing more and more on recently has been the DLR, which is days since the last race. When they're red like they are for the 2 and the 3 and the 5. Kind of a lot, right? Where they haven't raced in a while. This is their first off of a pretty long layoff, which gives me a move up on the 6, who we've seen at Oaklawn a couple of times, which I know this isn't race nor shape, but it is part of the whole process. Is he's raced recently at this track, going half a furlong longer now after winning 3 in a row. And so just like, okay, this one kind of fits, but maybe he's outclassed, and being that far down, and when the squares are similar size, you're like, well, they're kind of the same. And I don't think anybody would say that Sovereignty and Publisher are kind of the same. I think there's a distinct difference between the 2, but they're kind of the same in some of the things that they've been doing.
And the thing is when you say they're kind of the same, that's something that's fluid, right? Yep. That they're not always quite the similar, the same, but in today's race they could be. Right. It's one of those things that's like, it is situational. It is fluid. And for today's race, I mean, based on sort of what we're seeing, both coming in off layoffs, the 9 furlongs being kind of that equalizer in there, maybe they are closer to the same. And if there is a time, we'll kind of get in deeper. But, this could be the time that Journalism does flip the tables. Now, as far as kind of other things that light up here before we dig into the grid, In terms of optics figure range, it's actually a little bit lower than I would think for today's race, but it's giving a 92 to 98, showing that's typically what it takes to win this race, and then factored in as far as like who these horses are in the field. So it's kind of like how you do like a track variant, right? It's like beat lengths and you kind of like adjust a little bit, and that's sort of what we do for the optics figure range. But every horse in this field does have green, right? So there's not a single horse in here that's like, this horse isn't fast enough to win. Now that dark green, that big bright green obviously stands out on Sovereignty and Journalism. They look kind of like the two horses that figure the ones that if we're going to get through this race we should start the handicapping there.
Yep.
Even Publisher, the speed figures are fine. There just hasn't been that like big breakthrough race. So let's start with Sovereignty, who's going to be the favorite in here as we look at the grid. So this is sort of my process through all of this, and we'll start there. Now, as you mentioned, coming in off the layoffs. So the other thing that I'm going to do that I haven't done yet, because I'm looking at it for the first time, is I will look at works. I'm not going to do it right now. I don't know if you've looked at works for Sovereignty coming back, but that is something I'm going to do to just make sure there's no kind of red flags. But given the fact that
I'm going to wait for you to tweet about you watching the works and tell me how it looks, because you actually watch workouts and I don't.
Generally speaking, in terms of a horse that's coming in off a layoff, is I just want to see, like, is this horse who they should be, right? Like there's no big tail off. Like the works are consistent. They look fit. They look race ready. Doesn't look like they're going to be short. As you mentioned, the purse of this race, over $1 million, 1.25. It's massive. I'll also show this season as far as Belmont horses at Oaklawn Park. And as you can see, there's been a lot of success this meet in terms of horses coming in off layoffs. Parchment Party winning the Temperance Hill, Beauty Reigns still running a B. There's one horse who's been off the board, but of like those horses in comparison was 8-1. So I maybe that's another reason is they've been having success with these type of horses coming back around to Oaklawn Park. Now that's different caliber of race, but something to consider there as well. Just in terms of, coming in off a layoff and getting a horse ready, there's been some success already this season. So we'll go back, going back to the grid here. Again, without having the recency, the other things I'd look for is how is this horse done in graded stakes races? Obviously, B's, B plus, A, so checks the boxes on class. Speed figures we've already talked about. Running style fits today's race shape, so overall, no knocks. The final piece of the puzzle is just watching those works. If there's no red flags, seems legitimate. Now, in terms of the 9 furlong distance, it's fine, but I think he probably, again, is maybe prefers a little bit longer, but I don't necessarily. I feel like you're splitting hairs, right?
Yeah,
and with favorite,
absolutely.
It's probably worth it a little bit, but not so much that it'd be like if the works look good, Sovereignty is vulnerable. Now, scrolling on to Journalism, who's also coming in off a layoff, hasn't come off a layoff in the past, and not quite like this. Now, he did come off a little bit of a layoff to run the San Felipe and actually improve, ran a decent number, came off a little bit of a layoff in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and even though not getting a win, but another kind of top number. So even though he hasn't come off this type of layoff, he has run off similar breaks in the past and come back and fired fresh. So that I would say is a positive in this case. Another horse that absolutely fits. Speed figures, check the box. Class, there's it's never really been under a B minus, right?
Yeah.
And those B minuses are, and even like the B races are coming at the 10 for a long distance. And I think the shorter's key. I think that moves him up in this spot. So from that comparison, to your further point, they're kind of like the same.
Yep.
So if you're getting a better number on one than the other, I think, I'm kind of leaning Journalism over Sovereignty at this point. And
Yes.
that's
My life is complete is that I came to this conclusion before you looked at the race. Now, the other one that I think would be actually worth looking at, I mean, so we don't necessarily look at all of them, but if you want to, we can. Publisher coming in
yep,
off of all of those wins and
yep.
having the races at Oaklawn. I probably put too much stock into running on the track. And I don't think Oaklawn is some like weird track, but I've heard Oaklawn's kind of a weird track, just like I've heard that Churchill is kind of a weird track. And so having races on that track is better than not, in my opinion. And I think that's the case of like any track, but these ones specifically, Oaklawn is goofy and Publisher's been crushing at Oakland this year. Now he's been running in a maiden special weight and allowance at a listed stakes race,
There you
but
go.
he's been running well, and he was in the Derby with them as a maiden, and got crushed that day. But also, maybe he's better, and he's now a 4-year-old and been racing, and these two are coming off of a layoff.
He does definitely have the recency edge, but in terms of getting faster, he really hasn't. He really hasn't been able to progress. His speed figures from last year, he did kind of improve with racing. Really, another horse that just really hadn't run a bad race, right? They try him in the Southwest, and he had an excuse, so I can give a little bit of a pass there. And then continues to improve with racing. I think really what got to him more than anything was not taking that step forward and getting a little bit exposed at the higher level of class.
Yep.
And at this point, I think it's kind of the same thing. You have a horse that's in form, you have a horse that's consistent, and you take a shot.
Yeah, he's got no shot is the problem.
Yeah, he has no shot to win, but
Yeah.
Can he finish? Can he get into the exacta? Can he get
No.
into can he get into the try? And I don't know if that's playable unless you're thinking
Right.
that one of the two, like journalism or sovereignty, is going to run out. Then maybe that's something to consider. But he is definitely softer. I mean, the race this season are solid, but even in the case of running in allowance company and in the American Pharoah Stakes, he's recording B optics grades. Now, B optics grade is a winning race for the level, regardless of finishing position, even though he did win. Typically, what we'll see is if a horse does take that step up in class, we want to see that B plus or A minus, something to indicate that they can do. They dominated the group that they're in. They're ready. They're ready to step up, and he's just doing kind of what needs to be done in those races.
He got a B plus in a maiden special weight as a 4-year-old. So it's not like he's doing something that, like, if sovereignty or journalism were in that race, they would be getting, extra credit and, ruining the curve and all of the things that come along with a grade like that with those type of horses. And now he's running Bs against allowance company and a listed stakes company, which are good for him. But now he's facing journalism and sovereignty and White Barrio, who, are Breeders' Cup Classic winners or participants in favorite types.
Yeah.
So he's over his head, and
he's over his head in terms of class on the win end. He would need those other horses to take a step back. But going to the grades is a good point that you bring up. The B plus and maiden special weight company, suggesting he can take that step up in class, which he did.
Yep.
The American Pharoah Stakes, I do believe, is one of those stakes races that is open to horses that haven't won a stakes. So it's kind of like a glorified allowance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Horses that have been running in stakes but not quite there. The other horse that I did want to look at is White Barrio.
Yep.
Because of the morning line being what it is and the optics plot being a little bit less than ideal. And, again, kind of being that horse that could be the alternative. Now, Sappy Joseph has also been sending out some live runners to Oakland Park. Not all of them. The numbers don't quite look like the Belmont stat that I put up earlier. But looking at White Barrio, I'd say there's no pace advantage for them in here. And from the rail, we did a video on the rail, so we kind of tie that in here. What's his trip going to be from the inside, right? Because a lot of times, as we've done the video from the rail, there's kind of like two sort of ideal scenarios, right? You go to the front or you take back and then you make a run. And sort of when you're that in-between type horse, which White Barrio does tend to be, it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
right? So he's got, not only does it as an individual not really have a pace advantage, disadvantage, but now we're kind of looking more in terms of trip. Like, how is he going to win this race? Is he going to get the jump on? Is he going to get the jump on sovereignty? Is he going to get the jump on journalism? Doesn't appear that he can outkick them. So what's his kind of path to victory, right? And if he
Yep.
takes back and those two get in front of him, then he's really got a hill to climb.
Yep.
Outside of that, he's a solid horse, right?
Yep.
He's run speed figures that fit. He's run B pluses in grade one company. So all of that fits. I think it really just does come down in his case to pace.
Yep.
Pace and trip not being the ideal.
So in this case, with him getting the rail, as you were just saying, it seems like his one chance is to go, which looking through, not really his running style, but also not against his style, right? You have some races where he's been right off of the pace.
Well, this race looks like he was there, right? He's got
Yep.
pressed, right?
Yep.
He's pressed here. Trying to see if there's any other. His second career win. Now, both of these scenarios have kind of some red keywords going on.
So it doesn't seem like he wants to be the leader.
It's not his ideal, yeah.
But also,
that might give him his best chance.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's ever had that opportunity because it always feels like the races he's been in, he's not been the fastest because there's ones that need the lead, and he's been more able to sit off. Even that most recent on the Pegasus World Cup, like he was further back, but that was because you got some speed, and then he came running, and he didn't win, but he ran a good race and just got caught by a long shot who happened to be very, very good. Yeah, and so it feels like if he goes, that's his chance, and it feels like everybody should know that, and that's going to be the trip. Now, obviously, we don't know if that's what they're going to tell him to do. Maybe they say, no, we got the kick that we're going to beat sovereignty and journalism. But from the rail, it feels like if he goes, he's going to be able to get the distance. He's going to be able to do those things. And if he is there and sets a, honest enough, but fair enough fractions, he's had to work, right?
I think what you said right there is kind of the key, and let's expand on that, is that he's not one that I think he's fast enough that he's going to be able to clear and get separation.
Yep.
And I think in order to win, he might need that. And I just don't know if he has it.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to be able to kick clear of these other horses? I just don't think he's going to get separation, right? Like sovereign, he's just not fast enough. You could have all the intention in the world, but I just don't think he's fast enough, unless for whatever reason, sovereignty does take back, right? Or some of these other horses, try to take back. But even a publisher from the outside, it's like he's not necessarily fast either. But based on the position, if we go back, going back to the plot, like he's close enough at the first call as well that from the outside, like they're drawn outside. Like, what other trip are they going to have? Are they going to get a 4-wide stalking trip behind sovereignty and journalism? That sounds like it sucks. Are they going to take back and save ground, try to make a run, maybe try to just pick up a check for minors? Maybe that's a strategy. I don't think there'd be any loss in that in terms of tactical, try to run for the purse, but they could be out there. And maybe that's Duke of Duval. Maybe they try to send them as well. That horse really looks like they have
one.
They have no shot.
Yeah.
Why not? And at least has been in races that have been moderately fast paces. They might have, like the plot says, a little bit more tactical speed than what they're comfortable with. But yeah.
And that sort of this race with those two coming in makes this race very interesting. Also, Duke of Duval was here because he thought he was going to be facing Publisher and maybe Wadabario, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, crap, journalism and sovereignty are here. Well, I guess we're going to be here, and there's only 6, so maybe he scratches on the day because you can.
Might be
Same
in to
with,
fill the race. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
I mean,
and
that really is kind of what it seems like too.
yeah,
Might be in to fill the race. And at this point, he's in the third start of the cycle. They've run well this season. It's like, where else are you gonna run?
yeah,
Right? This just might be, we'll run here and then we'll figure it out
yep.
from
When
that point going on.
it does feel like liberal arts was entered to scratch because he hasn't raced since Derby Day last year, when he
New
was,
connections.
yeah, and was a he won the Knicks Go, but hasn't raced since illicit stakes, and has that race at Oaklawn and the American Pharoah that Publisher won this year, and coming back as a 5-year-old. Maybe this was their goal all along, but certainly feels like a forced entry, and not really one that he's quite there. But
He's probably just a little bit on the softer side as
yeah,
well, in addition to giving up recency. And then you have the other question marks in terms of the new connections. I know Heather fairly well, trains out in Illinois, and I like Heather a lot, but she's kind of struggling this meet. And has good. She's very good. Like, don't get
yeah,
me wrong. I want to say both things at the same time. I think
right,
she does an excellent job. I'm really glad she has this horse. I think she's going to do really well with this horse.
yeah.
But this meet, she has struggled. It's just one of those things. Like,
Well,
the
Oakland's a
numbers are
tough
what
meet.
the numbers
Yeah,
are what they are, right?
Oakland's a tough place to win races, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, 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 yeah.
lots of trainers go there, lots of people try to win there, and if this is your best horse and this is what they want to do, like, yeah, you go and you try to win the $1.25 billion purse because you can, and then unfortunately you show up with sovereignty and journalism, and okay, well,
Listen,
maybe you make it a prep and then you go win a race somewhere else, and maybe you don't get the 1.25 million, but maybe you find a $500,000 race.
yeah, and I mean, I've put up Heather's stats just at Oakland this year. Still looking for that first win. Is again send out some live runners. Like, there's no big reds in there, just in
Yep.
tough spots. But if this is the one win she gets this meet, I think she'll be okay with that. So
The winter was okay. It
that
was
would
worth
be
the, yeah.
yeah, that would be literally the one time, right? I guess that's your one time. I'll take it. But Liberal Arts is a good horse, and
Right.
again, I think she's gonna do well. It's just this is a
Yeah.
tough spot. It's a
I-
tough spot in off the layoff. It's a tough spot with their running style. Would need to, if those two come back, journalism and sovereignty come back and run their A game, and maybe they're not off the layoff, but let's
Right.
say they do. Liberal Arts doesn't have a race that's as fast as
Yeah,
this you on
but
the best day.
nobody does in this race either, right? I
Correct.
mean, Bright Barrio does
Yeah.
3 years ago or 2 years ago,
Right.
whenever he won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So, I mean, like I said before, you're facing a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, the one that would have been the favorite, and one that ran fourth in the Breeders' Cup Classic to Forever Young in Sierra Leone. So, not winning this race is not a knock on anybody. I mean, there's nobody even showed up to this race because they were terrified, as it turns out. So, journalism wins and sovereignty gets second, and White Barrio completes the trifecta, and it pays $3.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, what did we learn? I think I'm gonna go with journalism in here. May try to figure out underneath, and maybe try to, if anybody. I feel like it's probably pretty tough to toss sovereignty again, unless there's like big red flags in the works. But other than that, I think it'd be pretty tough. I'll have journalism on top, sovereignty likely in there, and then in terms of that third spot, it's going to be a toss up.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be Duke of Duval. It's probably not gonna be White Barrio.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
maybe I'll be going with Publisher, because I think, as talking it out, maybe there is that scenario where they do try to run for third,
Mm-hmm.
or run front underneath, and that works out effectively. But yeah, we'll see. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna steal your pick, and I'm gonna go with journalism.
Yeah.
Steal your pick.
Not because you think journalism is significantly better than sovereignty, as much as price dictates what makes the most sense, and it's not quite a toss up, but it's not quite a coin flip between the two, but it's close enough to a coin flip between the two, and you're going to get
9
paid.
furlongs in this race, yeah.
Yep. And so you're going to get paid as if you have a weighted coin that lands on your side 70% of the time or so. That math is wrong, but close enough where it's 50-50 chance, and you're getting paid significantly better. Sovereignty being 4 to 5, I bet he goes off lower, and What was journalism in this race?
5-2, which will probably be lower
Yeah,
than 2,
but
right?
so you get 2 to 1 on him, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're getting significantly better pay on that. So that's
Yeah, and
sovereignty
it's
is probably better, but that's
yeah,
something.
and whether it's playable by that time, completely different story. Might be a watching
Yep.
type thing. Will remains to be seen, but yeah, I think that is right. All right.
All right. Well, we'll watch the race come Saturday. Probably not a bettable race unless journalism somehow goes off at higher than 2 to 1, which I find hard to believe. I imagine sovereignty will probably be too short of a price to play. Maybe there's an exacta there. Probably not. But we'll do this again sometime soon, and check us out next time when we have some more coverage. Bye, everybody.